Gali, mera gali, spera gali nichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It's back, an old series with a little bit of a reboot inside the dressing room, and I couldn't think of a better person to start this off with. And I hear you, squaddies. Why didn't you bring Harkes on live? Because we're going to do a lot more video content this season. So let's rock and roll, kids.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
You making us part of your day. If you're listening on our audio platforms on Apple and Spotify, thank you so much for joining. Leave a review, subscribe, and those listening to this in our video section, make sure you have your voice heard in our football democracy in the YouTube comments. Welcome back, one of our favorites, absolute legend, US men's national team legend, trailblazer, the man himself, Mr. John Harkes.
What a pleasure, Sophie. Great to see you. You look fantastic as always. I can never get up to your level, though, of just fashion. You're just such a high level status. I'll do my best, though, as we move forward.
Hey, listen.
How are you?
I'm good. You know, good summer so far. I mean, we're not starved of football like we used to be in the 90s, the way it always seemed so long. But you've been doing some bits, once again, winning. That's all you do in your career. You were down in Costa Rica. You got a new role. Tell everyone about that a little bit.
Yeah, very fortunate to get called in to assist with the U15 youth national team on the boys' side, which has been great. God, what a great age. So many talented players coming through, and just open mindset, just a growth mindset from these kids, and they just feed off of everything, which is great. So yeah, the US Soccer Federation reached out to me, asked me if I'd be interested. I went down to Argentina at the end of May. We beat Argentina 4-2 in the first game, and then lost 2-1 to them the next day. They had about 6 more players there that looked about U19, but we won't talk about that right now. We were at Messi's Federation training center, which was fantastic. So the guys were great. And in Costa Rica, we got them to the final of the CONCACAF, Champions tournament. And, we fell to Mexico, which really hurts me, how I feel about the rival Mexico and all the games we've played there and in Azteca and everything. So, but great experiences. And again, always learning, as a coach, always, finding ways to add things to your, repertoire. So it was fantastic. I loved it.
I was going to save this bit of the conversation until later, but it seems like a good time to kind of riff off it. You mentioned the rivalry, and I mean, I remember growing up the rivalries between Arsenal back in the day, in the late Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, Tottenham. All of those clubs, City were irrelevant back then a little bit, but just gives me an opportunity to squeeze that in whenever I can. and then in international level, England v Germany, England v Argentina, and US v Mexico for me is, I don't know about here, but outside of the Americas, it is without doubt one of the most underrated rivalries in football, I think, because not only do you have the rivalry of the game, but border rivalries always seem to have just a different edge to them, John. And one of the things that irks me, and some people say, you're such a dinosaur living in the past. I can't stand seeing players kiss in the tunnel before games. I can't stand them laughing at halftime and going off and then being friendly at the end. I remember games with your generation, the Deuce and Landon, Donovan, and we all know a little bit about that history. Does it irk you?
It does to some extent. I mean, we talk about we go back in the archives, as they say, joking around about how old we are, but that feel, just that competition, that rawness of that grit and desire to win, every time you step out in the field. I get it. It's a different generation. I certainly know, as a manager as well, when you're coaching, you have to adapt. If you don't adapt, to the next generation or their mindsets, then you're not successful at all. So from that perspective, I still see that missing a little bit, that grittiness. But having said that, I do see the competitive levels, and we go back to that US Mexico, like you said, the rivals. And look, I mean, there was a lot of fights in the tunnel before we came out. And when you go back to, even from the club standpoint, God, you talk about Arsenal and, Chelsea, and then, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, all these clubs that always have these rivals. If you go back even into Boca River, it's madness, right? It's those madness. And they try to calm the crowds now, which I understand for safety standpoints, but you still want to see that grittiness on the field. So, for me, it stings. You lose to Mexico in CONCACAF. Oof, that's a hard one for me to swallow. So we did a rotation of the staff in CONCACAF in this tournament. So I was on in the semifinals and some of the early games, but we had to rotate staff because CONCACAF only allowed 5 people on the bench. So that included your doctor, your trainer, your high performance, and 1 assistant coach and the coach. So me and the goalkeeper coach had to sit out the final and let the other coach go in there. So it was hard for me to watch. I'll be honest with you. I was going crazy. Then people were going to throw me out down in Costa Rica. But, it's great. You try to have that calmness and the emotional intelligence during that process, but you still want to win games. You want to win. And beating Mexico, for me, back in the day, was always fantastic. And even after the 94 World Cup, we didn't get to compete against them, but we did in the Copa America. After we beat Argentina in that last group game, 3-0, we ended up beating Mexico in the next rounds in penalties, which was great to go through. So still holding on to that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can't imagine, though, John, that you were, swapping shirts and kissing with this absolute legend, Valderrama.
Yeah, I was in the shadows of his hair. It was difficult to be seen then. You could see that shadow over me there on the right.
Looks like you're tugging at his shorts here, mate.
Just a little bit. Sophie, you didn't see what happened prior to that. I'm sorry. You don't know the full.
Tell me.
He was so strong in terms of holding players off. So he would bump you. He was so smart before, anytime a ball came to him, but he was always 2-3 steps ahead of many players. And as you know, some of the great midfielders that are out there. And so for me, it was a great competition to always manage up against him, in the midfield. And even in Major League Soccer, when he went and played for Tampa Bay, it was great to compete against him then. And when he got upset, he steamed off the field and didn't talk to anyone. So I still remember I was beating them in a playoff game 4-1. Which was fantastic. And I went to go shake his hand, and he's like, please, John, please. And he just kept walking. And I said, okay, fair enough.
I love it.
He's a great guy off the field. Just one of the quality players for sure.
I love it. That's how it should be. And it turns out that I've forgotten to turn the chime off my Big Ben grandfather clock. So it's okay. It brings a little bit of London to the international audience. So let's talk a little bit and stick with the US men's national team, World Cup, Club World Cup. Want to get your opinion on that before we dig into a little bit of a parallel story that's happened with my club over the last couple of days, and a good old friend of yours, Tony Adams, getting stuck in 2 feet, studs up, on a subject regarding captains.
Tony Adams offsides. Always, I love it.
You are the original Captain America, right? And people follow in your footsteps. I've been talking to a few friends of mine about, they love it when I kind of bring on players like you, of course, Landon, Donovan, and Christian Pulisic now. And on the Arsenal front, you've got Tony Adams and Patrick Vieira having been incredible captains, and now Martin Ødegaard. Before we get stuck into some of what has been said and get your take on it, John, is I still love, a lot of people keep talking about the role of the captain has changed. It's even diminished to the point where, I think Emery did that at Arsenal one season when he chose 5 captains. As a former captain of club and country, do you really truly believe in the modern game, the captaincy, who wears the armband is irrelevant? Because many people do say that now.
I don't think it's irrelevant at all, actually. To be honest, I do see, and look, and I'm a Liverpool fan. I've been one since 11 years old. And, Virgil van Dijk for me he's that stoic kind of, he's not the most boisterous, but you hear him when you hear him. I mean, he'll speak out. And there's many great captains, that have gone through the game and different personalities and what they bring. So it always, for me, I think when a manager picks a captain, he's picking the captain based on the strengths and perhaps even the weaknesses within the group. And he feels like, or she feels like that person needs to do this, whether it's a voice, sometimes it's in the dressing room, sometimes it's just leading by example on the pitch, and always keeping a high expectations and high core values in their play. So that competitive nature, for me, I don't think it's irrelevant at all. Look, the game has changed. Obviously, the refereeing has changed. How you're approaching the referees has changed. Even the managers have changed, from ownership groups. Sometimes taking away the value of a manager, and but I do think having a good captain, someone that can keep everybody in their thoughts, more of a cerebral kind of overarching, thought process and a team is very important, not just on the pitch, but in the dressing room as well.
So let's talk a little bit about before we kind of get to the US side of things. I wanted your take in particular because it's a fresh story as well, is Tony Adams, who you competed against for many years. We loved all of those battles, talking about how until, Mikel Arteta drops Martin Ødegaard as captain and hands the captaincy to Declan Rice, Arsenal won't win anything. This is a captain, by the way, who's the only player to have won and lifted the championship in 3 decades. He is revered at the club. There's a statue of him outside the Emirates. Tony, and you've played against him. Do you think his comments were fair or foul, John?
Well, I mean, it's hard to have an opinion on someone else's opinions. Tony knows where he's coming from. I actually got to work with Tony as well in studio, down in Florida a few years back, covering games, and he's a great guy, very thoughtful guy, and I don't think that he says things without having to be, thinking every situation, negative and positive, about it. So he obviously feels really strongly about it. I don't think it's foul. I mean, for me, I think coming from a guy like Tony, who was such a strong leader in a very difficult, hard, aggressive leagues back in the day, in those times, he wants to see some of that fight. He wants to see some of that Arsenal, I guess digging down in that
DNA.
Yeah, he wants it to be part of their DNA. Well said. And so for me, it's like, look, there's nothing wrong with former players doing that. What I don't like is when former players are on a platform in a media and they just criticize, saying that they're not as good as the teams in the past. It's all different. The game is different. So, I think you have to be respectful of what's going on at the time. Arteta, I would think that he wants a true leader. I don't know what he's like in the dressing room, Ødegaard. But at the same time, I know there's a lot of pressure on this Arsenal group that have just come so close to winning this title in the Premier League. So close. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, if results don't go according to plan for Arteta in the beginning, there's that pressure is going to increase, dramatically. And who's going to pull them out of it. You need a strong leader to do that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit like people on social media, right? Just because your voice is the loudest doesn't mean you make the most sense.
Yeah.
And there are definitely quiet leaders. And Martin Ødegaard, I covered him in a game for Norway versus Cyprus when I was over in Cyprus. And, you know, he's captain of his international team. There's a reason for that too. And I saw him up close and how he handled things. And basically, you know, Haaland, you know, the superstar player, right, John?
Yeah.
He gets treated with kid gloves and mollycoddled, and Ødegaard's out there defending and battling the questions from the media. And I think hopefully this will make him stronger. I understand where Tony Adams was coming from, but I think he has every right to say that as such a legend for the club. Maybe it's how he delivered it that left a bit of a bad taste in some fans' mouths. And then there's another one too that happened over the last few days, and we saw this kind of brewing for a while. There seems to be some discourse. I mean, maybe from the Berhalter days, even though you can criticize Greg all you like, he did deliver trophies. And Christian Pulisic pulling out of the Gold Cup. You had Tim Howard and Landon on their podcast talking about how that they just would never have done that back in the day. And I feel like you're the type of player too that wouldn't have pulled out. And then there's this documentary that's come out, and Timothy Way is calling, you know, ex-players having an opinion evil, and Pulisic, clearly his goat is up on what's been happening. What's your take? Because I think this is a little bit deeper than just these comments with regards to the overall culture in the national team right now.
I'll be honest with you. I'm always curious as to who's the fire starter. You know, who's the initiator? Who's the one who took a story? There's so much football these days. Players need rest, without a doubt. If you don't get rest, you don't have a balance, and it just leads to more injuries. And then you don't want an injury late in season. And so, you know, from that perspective, I could see why Christian, you know, wanted to take some time. Look, Pochettino is, to me, people are like, wow, how do you think the US team did this year and this summer and blah, blah, blah. I didn't really feel like it was a US team or a squad. I felt like this was a time as a manager for Pochettino to discover new talent and look at his depth. And if he's able to do that through tournaments and through the summer, then why not? And there's certain players, as you know, Sophie, you've covered the game for a long period of time, that are burnt out by the time they come to April and May. You know, to turn around and go back at it again is difficult. Back in the day, I can remember one of our seasons, I think it was probably when we played Arsenal, both in the league and the FA Cup in 93. And I think I had about 57 games, you know. And then in the summer, you know, I always tell people that Ian Wright never caught me there. You know, he was way faster than me. Way faster than me.
He may have caught you with this, but maybe not with
he
the
did. I
legs.
saw him with AC/DC jamming the other day. I was like, oh, Ian, I love it. Broadening his wide music range. And but I do think that, look, I mean, we back in the day would come from those leagues. And even when I came into the 94 World Cup, God, I played with Derby County. We won to the league promotion final with Derby County, a kind of a new club, like building up a new younger squad. I was one of the older players there at that time, at like 27, I think I was. And it was hard, but I had 60 games in that league. And coming into a World Cup, I had 3 days rest, lots of ice baths. And I played, I think I arrived in the States May 29th. And I had first game against Switzerland, and then Colombia, June 11th and June maybe 16th, I think it was. So it's a lot. You got to get into it, and you have to have the mentality to fight through things. And a lot of us get adversity thrown at us in a lot of different ways, the challenges, and you just got to fight through it. So to me, it's like, look, why are we looking to point fingers and call people out when maybe they haven't had a discussion with that person? It's almost like, you hear so many fans, they just criticize people on TV, and then they meet them in person. They're like, wow, actually a really good person. Or, she's great. I love speaking to her. A lot of people just like to criticize. There's a lot of hate out there. It's easier to tear down a house than it is to build one up. So I hope people can stay in the positive, keep supporting the U.S. I do. Even when they lose, I support them constantly, because when you're part of that legacy with U.S. soccer, and when we qualified back in 1990 for the Italy World Cup, it was the first time in 40 years to get back to that world stage. So everything since then has been trying to grow the game, and constantly we are fighting in this country to get there, because our league is 30 years young. When we put it up against the Premier League or the EFL or whatever you want to do, it's like we're still growing. We are still growing. So we're chasing the game a little bit on the men's side, and with Emma Hayes on the women's side, it looks like she's starting to introduce her style and everything, and be one of the top managers again, managing this group and transitioning this group, with a lot of younger faces coming in. She's done a great job. And so, look, we got to continue to support these players, young and old, as they come through the system. So hopefully on both sides, we have a balance with the men and the women. And with the World Cup, God, so close, 26 coming up. I really hope Pochettino can get it right.
Do you think that the team, and I love that you mentioned Emma, because I did want to ask you about her. Emma came in 2 months, wins already, right?
Yeah.
She's an incredible coach, and for a long time, I mentioned this to an presser once. I didn't like her because she was Chelsea manager, so there was nothing to like about Emma. But deep down, of course, she's an absolute legend, right?
Put on your bias, Sophie.
But do you think the US men's, there was so much noise even when Greg was the coach, and yet Greg won Nations League, super competitive against Mexico, but lost towards the end, those CONCACAF games that you just can't lose if you're the US men's national team. Do you think the team has regressed since Pochettino's taken over, John?
I don't think it's regressed, Sophie. I think it's a rebuild, to some extent. As I said earlier, there's a depth chart that he's on a discovery kind of like, what is there to offer? There's still a lot of players out there, even playing in Major League Soccer, that would love to get a call up to this team and compete. I think he knows that. And I think he knows, like, it's almost as if I already know what certain players are going to do and bring to the table. So I need to find out what else is out there. So for me, I don't think they've regressed. I think they're just in a little bit of a holding pattern as they start to build to go forward. So it's not even, to me, as a full rebuild either. I think he knows what he wants out of this team and out of this program. And hopefully it comes together before the new year, to be honest.
John, as coach, when Christian said that he made himself available for the 2 friendlies, but not the Gold Cup proper, and the training, the staff, including Mauricio, said, it's no, basically, I'd say it's okay. I don't think it's ever okay for a manager to hear that from their captain. But would you have taken Christian for those 2 friendlies? Just because of other younger players or new try players coming in? What would you have done as coach?
Well, I mean, I think you have to assess every situation there is, because when you look at a player, even though you know what they're trying to bring to the squad, fitness wise, end of a season, how exhausted is he? Does he really need to regenerate himself, get a balance? And Pochettino knows that with so many players internationally. So that could have been one of his decisions not to allow Christian to come in. For me, I think it's, I like having the open conversations with the players as much as I can, just to get a feel where they're really at. Sometimes you go, okay, I rely on them. They know their own bodies, and I let them, come in and play. Even I've never been a full head coach of a national team, but I've assisted in different levels. And other times you have to put your foot down and just say, no, I'm not having you in here, and understand, is this a mixed camp? Is this a competitive camp?
Mm.
And sometimes that changes that platform. And so it's like, if that's part of what Pochettino is looking at in his strategic planning and build of this team, maybe it didn't make sense for him at that time. So he made the decision. Yeah.
Okay, we'll wrap up our World Cup and men's national team conversation here. The Club World Cup, which to me just seems like a total money grab. I was hoping to give it a little bit more oomph. They would play in the MLS specific stadiums as opposed to NFL stadiums. I think that would have helped going into a World Cup year.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people that were saying, oh, Americans just don't care. And I was fighting literally with my fists saying, you have no idea. All Americans care about is the World Cup, whether it's the women's team or the men's team. You wait, the American public will show up as they will in Canada and as they will in Mexico. And so what's your take on the Club World Cup, whether it was good or bad marketing leading up to the World Cup? Or are you in agreement with me that who cares? Who gives a toss, basically? Americans and Mexicans and Canadians are going to show up in their thousands and thousands.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm with you on this one, Soph, because I went to a lot of the games. There was a couple at Audi Field here with DC United, and I also went to the Club World Cup Championship up in MetLife. I was invited up there by FIFA, did a lot of media up there, and talked to a lot of different groups, and then was able to sit there with my wife Cindy and just watch the game. And to me, I thought it was brilliant. To be honest with you, I don't see how everybody's like, what are we doing? It's necessary from FIFA's point of view to say, like, what works, what doesn't work. This was a trial basis, really, in terms of stadiums, locations, what they need to do to improve to make sure that, the 26th World Cup for the men is going to be fantastic. So I think it was a trial run, but at the same time, we got to see some of the squads that were out there. Chelsea pulling a big surprise over PSG. But maybe not a big surprise for some people who saw PSG in the semifinal put everything they had into one bucket and performed tremendously. Look, I mean, I've been there as a player where we've done so much to get into, get past the semifinals, get to the finals, and then the tank's empty. But at the same time, I liked it. I thought it was fun. You see different personalities, different teams, style of play. And it gives you a little bit of a glimpse of what could be in 2026.
Regarding the players, they're asked to play a lot of football. Before we came, when we were in the green room, I was saying, compared to the 90s where we just couldn't wait. It was excruciating for the new season to start. Now there's football 365 days a year, and player health is definitely at the forefront. I also think, though, too, John, players and agents are culpable in some ways because they want more money. They want bigger contracts. How are clubs going to pay for that? They've got to increase ticket prices, season tickets, merchandise, game day concessions. However, it is a lot. And, Super Kev used to say, footballers want to play football. He never bought into the whole tired thing at all. Do you think players play differently in a World Cup year? I mean, it only comes around once every 4 years, but it's also a massive, massive opportunity for so many to show their stuff. What's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a percentage of players that look at this as a platform for themselves. And then there's the other players that look at it from a more, team, kind of representing their country. And you're always going to get that. I'm sorry, but, there's always players on your roster, like even in your club, they're going to play for themselves. And there's going to be ones that play for the team mentality. And the ones that have team mentality usually end up being the winners. So, look, for me, it's players are going to be selected based on their positional, skill sets, where they are. Good managers pick on players that they know will bring success to them. At the end of the day, do they change their style of play? Do they change the way they approach it in the World Cup? I'd like to think they elevate their game as much as they can. I don't know. Modern day football, has it changed? Yes, it definitely has. But has it changed so much that players still don't want to compete and play at those platforms? Nah, not that much. They still want to go there. And I would think both,
Hmm.
female players and male players, want to represent their country at every level, whether it be for us, even in the Olympics, in the World Cups. Yeah, it's super important. And I know, like, even talking to a lot of players today, and they love it. They love the game and they want to play as much as they can. There is a lot of football. My dad the other night was telling me, who's my dad's 87, born in Dundee, and he was saying, I remember listening to Sheffield Wednesday games in shortwave radio, and now I'm turning off the telly. I don't know which game to watch or not watch. And he was just talking to me
Bless
this morning.
him.
He's like watching the Italian. I think the Italian Cup is on, whatever, and he's like,
I love
"Oh,
it,
this is great." So he's watching all kinds of football. And
man.
look, it's up to you, like what you want to watch, right? Sophie, if you feel
Hmm.
like you want to watch a Club World Cup, game in the final, then you watch it. If you don't, you don't. It's no big deal.
Yeah, no, it's right, because so many people bitch and moan about it, and it's like anything in life. Switch it off. Don't watch it if you don't want to.
Right.
But I agree. I think most players are hungry, and for those listening on audio, I'm showing pictures now of John holding up the US flag whilst playing for Sheffield Wednesday, and then a picture of him from the World Cup, captain. And I really do hope that I've lived here for a very, very long time now. And, I always feel like I'm lucky because I get to support England, I get to support Greece and Cyprus. And I always root for the US. And I really do hope that next summer, John, that the US come out of their group, that they put on a great show, that they, shut up a few critics, not only, in the media, but also from around the world who still think, which is stereotypical in my opinion, that Americans aren't into their football and stuff. And so I'm really really hoping that the US do well. No doubt about that. All right, let's switch gears, Mr. Coach, because something
Yeah.
else that's been bugging me, and I'm like, I wonder what John thinks of this, because I was talking to, who was I talking to about it the other day? Not Henry Winter, but someone on the show, about modern day tactics.
Yeah.
David Hillier.
Oh
you,
yeah.
you, rem- you
Oh yeah.
remember
Of course.
you remember Hills?
Yeah.
The Rottweiler in midfield, the beast to the beauty that was the Arsenal
Well,
midfield
well
back
said.
then. And we were talking about modern day tactics, and he was thinking and saying that he thinks it's a little bit over manufactured. There was a time when Mikel Arteta was struggling, and we had the conversation with him and Kev that for someone who's struggling, just adopt a 4-4-2, keep it simple, keep the football simple, and move on. He actually believes that the 4-4-2 is going to make a comeback in football at some point. What is your take? Do you feel, playing out the back, he was watching Bristol City the other day and saying, Soph, it was just like, just get the ball down the pitch. Why are we adopting these tactics in teams and for players who really aren't built for them and maybe setting them up to fail? What is your take on this?
Well, one of the things that you learn, and it's a great question, by the way, because I've been asked it many, many times over the last 2 months. It seems to be a huge topic of discussion, whether you're taking an education license in UEFA or even with the US Soccer Federation. One of the things I've learned, number one, is don't chase trends, and you
Mm,
gotta understand how to manage your group and your team. And when you start, even when you look at the Premier League's kicking off today, Liverpool against Bournemouth, and you look at who's going to be relegated, and everybody talks about the teams coming up, from the league below, and it's Sunderland and Burnley and Leeds and things like that. People talk about the style of play, and you can't. It's almost like when you're managing, you truly need to know the strengths and weaknesses of your team. And if you don't, then there's no reason for you to be managing this team, because that's the number one thing. You have to make that clear. And like you said, it could be a 4-4-2. That builds strength, and are you a high pressing team? Or are you a mid block team? Some people love to low block and then counter into transitional spaces. I mean, look, there's a lot of football out there, and it's just based on the personalities and the key qualities of each of the players on the field. And I, even when you're, the number one thing, like when I was younger, is like, don't compare yourself to the kid next to you. And I tell parents that now, even in youth football, it's like, don't compare to the other family or what they're doing, and don't compare your child to that child. And they're like, oh, okay. I go, everyone develops at different rates. And in the Bundesliga, some kids are really late bloomers, and they get signed professional contracts at 22, 21, whereas in, Premier League, some kids are signing at 15 and 16. And Barcelona, it's all different. It's all different. So I don't think that we need to overstructure and joystick players as much. If you do that too much, you lose the creativity in football, especially in the final third. Zone 3, scene 3, however you say it, it doesn't matter. And I do think that there has to be that balance where this is how we play. Yet as the game goes on, you have to, from a manager standpoint, tactically, you have to be adaptable in game. And some managers are really comfortable on the sidelines doing in-game tactical moves right away. If you haven't worked on it in training, you're going to struggle, right? Number one. But all you're looking for is how to exploit the spaces in the opposition. So if you see if you're able to interpret the space and see it, go exploit it. Or if there's overloads on the wings, if you're a team that likes to get wing backs high, then do that. I mean, those are the players you're signing to your roster. So if those players have those key qualities, that's kind of how your team has to play. You know what you're looking for when you sign them.
Do you think popcorn football is dead, John? Do you think that, I can't remember since Alexis Sanchez, for example, when he was at Arsenal, Eden Hazard, when he was at Chelsea, the new Chelsea kid, the Brazilian player, looks like a find. Saka is great on the wing, but he's not that kind of razzmatazz. He's very efficient and he's very effective and he's an excellent player. The popcorn star, and I think Barcelona and Lamine Yamal have a popcorn superstar. But do you feel like that needs to be reinvigorated? Are managers trying to control too much, instant gratification, so much to win and so much to lose these days? But is popcorn football dead?
I mean, I don't think so. I hope not. I mean, that's the joy of watching, right? When you see a player's personality just shine and take on 2 or 3 players and break open the game. I think that's the beauty of it. God, I hope not, Sophia. I mean, look, there was, what was the game that we just watched? It was right before the end of
the Champions League semi-finals.
Champions League semi-final. That was the best game of football I saw, where there was just open football again and just the old school. And I was like, wow, I came off of that inspired again, and just, that was fantastic. To watch that match. And look, I hope we see a lot more of those, to be fair. Sometimes, it does get over, I would say, the build up from the goalkeeper on goal kicks, things like that. We got to play through the lines of pressure, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Like, there is a strategic plan, but you got to leave it up to the players when they're on the field. What do they see? And that's why they're top players. If you don't do that, then what are you signing them for? You can put anybody in there, in these formations. So hopefully there's a little bit more of a balance for that, where you can see the excitement of a player that just shines and just stands out, like in terms of, a skill set, or taking on a player or two and just nutmegging somebody else before they chip a keeper, like Cantona used to. You love to see those players. Please, I pray that we don't take them out of the game.
I think that's why that Champions League semi-final sticks out so much, the Inter Milan and Barcelona, is because incredible. We don't see them as often now. So it felt like, it was an instant classic. There's no doubt about that. But feels like the difference between possession obsession and the tiki-taka style. This possession, maybe I'm talking from experience here and as a fan watching Arsenal, the 2022-23, excuse me, season, the 22-23 season in particular, we were playing this gung-ho, razzmatazz, fearless football. And then last season we went really possession obsession. And I think Pep, Cruyff, really, the total football guy, and then Pep from the school of total football and tiki-taka, to now Pep kind of leading the way. There's always like an ingenue, a trailblazer. It feels like everyone just wants to play the Pep way.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did that back in 2009 and 10 with Barcelona, and that became the number one style of play, building out of the back, the tiki-taka, the angles, triangles all over the field. Did it with Man City. I think, it's brilliant to see his mind and how he works in football. I'm sure he's going to bring something different to the league this year as well, after, struggling a little bit last year through a lot of injuries and style of play. Look, to me is, sometimes people go route one. That's the easiest way to get the goal. And if you play that style and you're clipping the ball to a true 9, that's flicking the ball on to maybe attacking wide players that are coming in underneath, that get behind the high line, then that's the simplest way in football to score a goal. So, I mean, to me, it's about just exploiting the opposition. So how quickly can you do it? When there are way too many, people trying to force the issue and building out of the back, God, I'd love to see the data analysis on turnovers and goals scored in their own defensive third this past year. I did see one where it was really high at 38%. I thought, that can't be right. That's a lot. So I can understand the frustration of people when they're just saying, it's like the old days, Sophie, when we would say, when you're clearing your lines, clear your lines. You're under pressure.
Rosie.
Yeah.
Rosed.
Hit your director if you don't like the director in your club. Stick it in their box if you want, but don't lose the ball 20 yards outside your own 18, So, yeah, there is a lot of that discussion going on. I think we're going to see a really intense Premier League this year. It's going to be super close. I think Man City is going to
hold your thought on that, because I'm going to finish on that. Okay, don't give away the gems. Yeah. At the end of the day, the goal is the same. The vehicle to get to the goal is what's changed in modern football. And I guess it's the same thing with medicine, technology, and a lot of the times what we've loved, it's hard to look in the rearview mirror sometimes. I always say only look in the rearview mirror to check my lipstick, John, because if you look in that rearview mirror too long, sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not so good.
Yeah.
So
scare yourself.
Before I get to the predictions, I've got to ask you about your beloved Sheffield Wednesday. This image from the BBC, and we've shown images today from the AP, from US Soccer, from Arsenal, and also FIFA, Alamy, and Getty as well. Now, John, I come from the era, and by the way, okay, I have, look at this picture I found of Super Kev, John.
Oh, Phil King having a go. Super Kev. Talk about competitive nature and Kev, huh?
So good. And then here you are with the real Romford Pele battling it out as well. I mean, there was such great times. I was talking to my good friend Kenny Ken. He comes from an era of, he's been a season ticket holder for a very long time, many, many years. He's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And he said, and I didn't remember this quote, is it true that you said this? Arsenal, during the rivalry, did you say Arsenal are just Wimbledon with A-levels? Do you remember saying that?
No, I do not remember saying that, because I don't even know what an A-level is.
It's like a high, I guess the A-levels are, a high school, not high school diploma, but a step above that in England. So you finish school at 16 in England.
Please. Who said that? Get them on for. Don't you have a big hand I could just slap?
I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna have him verify this, and then I'll message you, and then you can give it to him. Good banter, but he loved watching you play, as did we. I mean, you scored an absolute banger. But now, when you look at the Sheffield United kind of almost getting close. I think a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans breathed a sigh of relief when they did not get to the Premier League. Yeah. John, what's going on, and What do you think is going to be the outcome here for Sheffield Wednesday? It is, as we have seen in the past, this club, if someone gets hold of it, this has got Premier League written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to understand the decline, and the demise of such an incredible club that was pushing, late 80s, early 90s, competing, when the Premier League changed over in, what was it, 91, 92 season?
92, yeah.
Yeah, 92, and just pushing over and just, finishing third at the top of the table and competing with everybody. It's really hard to look at it and recognize who they are. But as you know, Sophie, a lot of it comes from the top, and leadership is an action. It's not a position. So when you're in a leadership role, you have to take action, and there's two ways of I guess, in being in charge is a leader, a true leader that connects people and guides them along the way strategically and plans to collaborate and have a great club. And then there's the boss that drives and pushes, and maybe people don't feel that connected to him. So look, at the end of the day, it's a bit of a mess. There is no real strategic plan in that club right now. You could see that, and the demise of that team. I love how the players are not giving up, how they're still fighting. When they cross the white lines, they know that they're competing for this club, and they do it for the fan base because the fans are fantastic. Look, we all say that of every one of our supporters groups, but they're a true like supporting club. The Owls have always been supported, and that's why I ended up signing with them, because I went on trial early in the days after the World Cup, with different clubs, and I thought, wow, this is like a family club back in the day. And Big Ron was coming on, and after being, with Manchester United, I thought, wow, this could be something that can really drive forward, and we have a rich history. This is this is a league, a club that's won titles, FA Cups, League Cups. In my first season there, 7 months in, we beat Manchester United at Wembley, and I got to walk those steps. So I have a lot of great memories, and unfortunately, that's a distance now, a big distance. There's a massive gap in where this club can go, but I hope that they can sell, get new ownership in there, and really lead this club to where they need to be. And start building, and look, there's a lot of clubs that go through a rebuilding stage, but you can't suffer too long because you really deteriorate over a period of time.
Yeah, I think I would love to see Sheffield Wednesday come back. Not only because we love and adore you here at Highbury Squad, but I have a couple of mates who are huge Sheffield Wednesday fans, and it just is too big of a club, too big of a fan base to be suffering as long as they have. And I feel like they will come back. They'll find someone that will invest in them, and they'll realize, you look at what Tom Brady's doing with Birmingham, you look at what the guys are doing at Wrexham, you look at the resurrection of, certain teams, and you just have to keep believing if you're a Wednesday fan. Right, we'll get you out on this, Harksy. The Premier League season does begin. You are a Liverpool fan. We allow you here because we like you, not because you're a Liverpool fan.
Thank you for your graces.
An amazing season last season for your team. What do you think? Top four. Can Slot go back to back? The wounded animal that is Pep Guardiola. He's feeling it. Maresca, the Joker, like in the pack of cards. 1-2 trophies already. I think Chelsea are going to be a little bit of a shocking surprise. And then there's Mikel Arteta, who might be under the most pressure, undeniably, of all of them. What say you, Harksy?
All right, I'm going to give you mine, but how do you feel about Arsenal this year? You feel they're going to win it all, don't you?
It's now or never. It has to be. I feel like the cycle is closing this season, because last year I didn't think it was a great Premier League year. I thought it was poor overall. I'm not taking anything away from Liverpool. They still had to beat who's in front of them. and they were superior to everyone, but everyone else was really drab. It was not a good spectacle, and one of the worst I think I've seen ever. We had a
Yeah,
lot of
I mean,
injuries, but we suffered. We dropped 21 points from winning positions, John, and we had 14 draws. So
what does that tell you about the mentality? Was there too much pressure put on this club?
I don't think we found a way yet to deal with the spotlight. I think we're a really good football team. We played some sexy football the 2 previous seasons to last. I felt like Arteta went from fearless to fearful last season, and maybe that's because you had hamstring injuries and surgeries to Havertz and Saka and Big Gabby, and then Martinelli went out too, played it too safe. We went from the opposite of how we were. And under the spotlight, I think mental's so huge in football. I don't need to tell you. I feel like silly saying that out loud to a legend like you, but that's where we've crumbled. PSG, John, in the semi-final at the Emirates, we played Real Madrid fearless. We went into that game against the Kings of Europe like anything can happen. Let's just go play football. And it was beautiful. The PSG game at home, we overhyped it. I think the club over-marketed it. I think Mikel Arteta getting him to do a video, but just keep it low pro, man, just like we did against Real Madrid. And in the first 10 minutes, we played the occasion, not the game. And once again, we faded under the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Arteta, and I think that was very well summarized, and I agree with you. I think that this pressure, this spotlight that's been put on Arsenal, that they become the nearly team, it really doesn't help in terms of throughout the season when injuries come. Is this a team that is playing off of 1 or 2 top players that are going to drive the game? Or is this a team that has many players, you can get goal scoring from everywhere? So I do feel like defensively, they are sound. I do. I think they are. I think a lot of people will disagree with me at times. I've had these arguments last week with a couple of friends of mine, and they're like, oh, I'm not so sure about Arsenal defending wise in transition moments. I'm like, I think they're strong, they're solid. And, I do think keeping everybody healthy, we all know that in the Premier League is critical. If Mo Salah goes down for Liverpool, does that change? At the end of the day, sure it does, but I think Arsenal are going to have I think it's going to be top between them and Liverpool. And if you're asking me for my top 4,
yes,
I think you are. I had Liverpool, Arsenal, I had Man City and Chelsea. And I think a lot of people do have that. I think they have a tricky run in terms of the league as well. They come out against Man United, which is kind of in a rebuild, trying to do what they want to do. So that's going to be a challenge. And then you have to look at some of their away fixtures. They're going to be tested. So is Arne Slot. Arne Slot, coming from Klopp, nobody expected Arne Slot to win the league, to be honest with you, and to win the league so early, with so many points ahead of everybody else. But I think like the Liverpool players stepped up and they took on a lot of responsibility within that club. And we saw some great performances. I think McAllister, whose jersey I have behind me, is.
I noticed that, and I was gonna,
Well, I just think he's just one of the unsung heroes.
He's great.
He's a quiet player. He has the skills to, defend, and his work rate is incredible. But he also pops up as a box-to-box 8 sometimes and gets these bangers at the top of the 18. And I think Liverpool's got to add a little bit more in midfield to get some goal scorers there, to be fair, that share the burden of all the attacking players, and even Saka, is he going to stay healthy? I hope so. I'm looking forward to seeing an Arsenal that's going to compete, without a doubt. And it's going to be a tight top 4, without a doubt.
Who wins the Golden Boot?
I still go with Mo Salah. I can't believe how fit this guy is, how dedicated he is. Talk about a professional, and how even when he missed opportunities last year to add goals to him, he's smiling. He finds a way mentally to stay in the game, and he becomes that goldfish. He forgets the ones he misses, and he just keeps moving on. So I got to go with Mo again. I wouldn't know why I would go against him. There are a lot of top players in the league that can score goals. I know that. Yeah, but at this point in time, I'm going to go with Mo.
Tyler Adams, Anthony Robinson. I mean, Tyler Adams had a great season with Bournemouth. I don't know if he's fit to play in that first game. I'm sure he is. But Americans in the Premier League, of course, you're looking for them to do their best and hopefully maybe with the clubs that they play for can walk off with a domestic cup.
Yeah. No, I think so. Anthony Robinson to me is just, wow, what a player. I mean, talk about a wing back that can do everything in the game: cross, tackle, finish, strike a ball, speed, transition. Guy reads the game so well. He's one of my favorite players right now watching. And as you said, Tyler Adams coming back to full fitness again and making a big impact when he came back into the midfield. I hope he just has a really good, healthy season and he's healthy for 26 because he's such a good player. Obviously I'm always cheering on club teams in Sheffield Wednesday and clubs like that I played for, even West Ham. They're going to have a tough season, but I do think the second year is going to be, it was always in a rebuild, with Potter. So look, I love watching football. I very rarely have like a hate bone in my body. I'm an optimistic person, and I know Liverpool is going to have a hard one with Man City and Arsenal, without a doubt. And like you said, don't be surprised by Chelsea. I know winning the Club World Cup is different, and they could be exhausted. How much football can players take and then recharge? It's going to be difficult. But as you know, it's a lot determined in those winter months, right on Boxing Day and going through back-to-back crowded schedule. That's really where teams drop down. And I think Arsenal coming out of February into March kind of struggled a little bit and started to drop off. So we'll see.
All right. Brilliant stuff. And by the way,
are you going all
yeah, we're going to do relegation. Before that, I was going to say, I should have mentioned Chris Richards as well, who's had a phenomenal time at Crystal Palace, right? Because he's actually won stuff. It's been a great story. It's really, really cool to see. Relegation. Go on.
Wolves.
Oh, I picked them too.
Burnley and Sunderland.
Sunderland, even with the signing of Xhaka.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I picked Wolves, Burnley, and Leeds.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's going to win the Champions League? I bet you say Liverpool.
If they stay healthy. Come on. Pray.
Come on. They're going to do the double, are they, John?
I don't know. I mean, you look at Luis Enrique at PSG is going to feel like they want to be there, and they want to compete, and they have a very balanced side. And I mean, again, some of the players that stand out, and you look at Dembele and, fantastic team. Real Madrid, Arsenal show that they can fight without a doubt in Champions League. Oh God, I would love for Liverpool to do it. I don't think it's going to be DC United. They don't have a shot.
That's a whole other show. We'll save that for another show.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but brilliant stuff from you, John. We're always grateful. You're so generous with your time. Such a legend like you popping in here at Squad Central. Great way to start off the season and inside the dressing room with you. Thank you so much. So grateful. We appreciate you, mate.
Appreciate the time. Thanks for inviting me back on. Always great to be with you anytime. And love the discussion. It's always great. And keep the style up, kid. You got high points, big time points.
Coming from a legend like you, I'll take it. Follow John, Harkes6 on Instagram. Until next time, hope you enjoy episode 1 of Inside the Dressing Room, Squaddies. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. From me and John, at ease. At ease.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.